Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Welcome to the Healing Generations podcast. My name is Alejandro Bern-Sosuna, and I will be one of your co-hosts for today's episode. You are currently tuning into the youth-led portion of the Healing Generations podcast, where today we will dive deep into the healing journey and story of Angel Ramos. From his time at Foothill High School to his work with Fly and his future endeavors, I am joined today with my co-host, Ariel Jimenez, and I will be passing the palabra to him.
Thank you, Alejandro, for that beautiful introduction, and I am just going to go ahead and say that I'm excited to definitely interview Angel. I've known you personally. I've seen you grow both professionally and personally, and I can't wait to rehear your story, but I can't wait also to share your story with all of our listeners. So let's go ahead and just jump in. You know, Angel, you've been in circle with us. You know how we roll. And the first question is always conocimiento, right? We like to get to know each other before we jump into business. So let's start with the little conocimiento. You know, who is Angel? Who are you? Who do you represent? What is it about you that you want to share with us today?
My name is Angel Ramos. I am the son of Angela Yadira Chavez and Jose Guadalupe Ramos. And I represent a lot of different things on the east side of San Jose. One of the things that, I recognize myself as is a Chicano. And a lot of people have different definitions of what that means. As for my definition, it's no de aquí, no de allá, not from here, not from there. And so growing up in the area that I grew up in, it's something as you took pride in. And so I kind of represent my raza, who are all Chicano. And so, yeah.
That's right. I think we're definitely bridge people. So that's a new term that I heard, that when you say ni de aquí, ni de allá, you're kind of stuck between both worlds, right? You're trying to assimilate to what people have in terms of America, but at the same time, you're trying to honor and connect to your roots, right? So you're right in that middle of that bridge. So let me ask a follow-up question, because I always say that, right? And I quote India Maria, ni de aquí, ni de allá. What is it about that concept in terms of living in two worlds that make you the most proud?
The thing that makes me the most proud is the identity, the purity of my people, and the people that I connect with. Like I said, I grew up on the east side of San Jose, and so the people that I connected the most with is, the people that live right next to you. I was like always having those barbecues, always having those house parties and all that type of good stuff. Just being in community with one another. I've been saying this recently, is like all we have is each other at the end of the day. And so that's what gives me the most pride, is being able to be there for my people, and then my people being there for me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I definitely agree. I feel like for as big as people say San Jose is, I swear to God, I know everyone in that city. Like, no matter where I go, you're going to see at least one person that you know. So thank you for sharing. We're going to dive a bit more into, conocimiento comes from when we sit in circle with each other. And I know at Foothill you went through Joven Noble, so I want to talk more about that. How did you get connected to the work? How did that impact you, or what was one of your favorite teachings from it?
I'm pretty sure the way that I got connected was that someone made a referral, because I had, before going to Foothill, they were like reviewing whether I was going to return to the Eastside Union District or not, for having several charges put on me in high school in my sophomore year. And so having gone from Independence then to Snail, and then finally ended up in Foothill, that's where I got referred to Joven Noble Sacred Circle. The one thing that I really enjoyed from that space is that it brought young men together to simply talk. And that's an experience that's invaluable. It's like there's not many spaces where you just be around other individuals who are enduring a struggle and just be able to talk about that struggle. A lot of the young men and young fathers that were in that space, they shared a lot of their life, their lived experience, as well as their wisdom, some of the things that they've done to overcome that. And a lot of them were open to understanding others and accepting the teachings, and look at things a completely different way than how they might have looked at it before.
Yeah, I think looking back at some of those circles, because I was in those circles with you, right? In terms of being one of the facilitators and just giving a shout out to, Osvaldo Relas, Miguel Ozuna, just some of the folks that we were running at the time. Yesenia Sepulveda. And it was a unique time, right? Because they put us in that little closet in the back and, here are 15 youth and we just want you to circle them up and talk about life skills. So thinking about that time, like being at Foothill, thinking about those times, and I don't even think we had a closet yet. We were still in the cafeteria,
Hmm.
right? We made that space ours.
Mm.
What was it about that space that allowed you? Because you came back even as a peer leader, you came back as an intern, you came back almost full circle. What is it about that space that allowed you to feel comfortable at Foothill, feel comfortable at circles that you want to lift up?
A lot of the teachings, it gave me a sense of what it means to be a man. I can't remember exactly what the exercises were, but it was just showcasing how a man presents himself and how he protects women and the double standard to it, and that some women a man would just protect without thinking about it, and then other times, the toxic masculinity and then beating his partner. And it put in perspective a lot of the things that a young man like myself is exposed to growing up, and as well as I would assume a lot of the young men who were in that space being exposed to the same experience and just trying to have a conversation around how they understand it and how they can heal and go into a different mindset around what it means to be a man and what values to carry, and carrying those values in not just one aspect but in all aspects of their life to just create a better quality of life. I think those were the things that kept me coming back, because those are the things that I think matter most into, you know, becoming an actual good person, a good and caring, kind person, and be able to make space for others to be able to grow and to be able to achieve the things that they want to. Those are the kinds of conversations that I constantly wanted to have. It's like, how can I get from living where I lived and then get to a better place where I can actually, call something my own, build something that's within my city and all that type of
Mm.
good stuff. So that's the thing that just kept me coming back.
It sounds really similar to that last teaching that we get, which is the crossing the bridge teaching, where you cross the bridge and now you're coming back to help others start that journey to cross the bridge. And from what I've heard, it sounds very similar to the work you're doing now in your community. And I feel like it's important to highlight that, like, no matter what, that we go back and we help the people that needed that help, that were like us in that same position. So I want to know, who do you work for? Like, a little bit more about that experience, how maybe the teachings from Joven Noble are connected to the work you do now.
So the organization I work for is Fresh Lifelines for Youth. I work as a program manager for the Youth Advisory Council. And then the Youth Advisory Council, it's a partnership between juvenile probation and the nonprofit Fresh Lifelines for Youth. The work that I did with the Joven Noble Sacred Circle and the values and teachings that they taught me were some of the things that I included in the creation of the Youth Advisory Council and being one of the founding members back in 2017. So one of the things that we have is that we have a mission, a vision, and we have a set of values. For the set of values, it's embedding those things like having respect, having loyalty, or having those things that just build community, bringing people together and to help individuals grow together. The mission is a product of like everyone's voice coming together. And then the vision is based off of our experience. And so having seen the things that we've seen being impacted by the juvenile justice system, we envision that we can help young folk who are trying to transition out of that and then transition into something that is better, in that they can transition into either career or higher education, whatever they desire. So that's how I continue to work in that way. I also work as a member of the Youth Liberation Movement, and so with that one, it's a similar structure in that it brings young folk together to create this organization who focuses on systems change, and again, it's just bringing those values into that space and holding myself accountable to what it means to be noble, and that you just want to provide like all those values that you come up with, like having respect, politeness, and then just being of service to
Hmm.
to be there, and then being of support to help them achieve the goals that they want to achieve. Yeah.
I think that's important because I think sometimes we lose that when we think about our career choices. We sometimes forget the values that we learned at home. And we think so much about success in terms of degrees, in terms of monetary value, how much am I making, that we forget that being successful also means being polite,
Mm-hmm.
connecting to community, being grounded, right? So thinking about everything you just shared, Youth Advisory Council, the coalition, the work that you're doing both in the community and with Fly, what made you come into this line of work? Like out of everything you could have done, why this kind of work? And this is a two-part question because you keep talking about youth. Why is it important to have a youth voice in the middle of all that?
The importance of me continuing this work, I've always had a vision of what I wanted the Youth Advisory Council to be back in 2017 when we first established it. All the different accomplishments of reaching a national platform and being able to attend conferences and being able to meet people in different positions and addressing different issues, a constant conversation around how can we come together and, find solutions. That's the thing that I wanted to develop and continue to develop because of the community. It's just feeling a sense of belonging, and then having the people behind you to support you. There's a real genuine strength in numbers, and especially when the people that come together are focused around, changing things for the better and leaving behind a legacy so that the people that come before them can have something to build on, to travel through, and engage in teachings that, just create a new cycle of positive change. So that's the thing that motivates me to continue doing this work. And the importance of youth voice is they're the ones that are experiencing the things that are happening now. And so they're the ones that are facing the oppression that I might be removed from like a couple of years now. Issues that arise in high school, graduated high school already 7 years ago. And so the high school experience is completely changed. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's important to have youth voice in there because we gotta address those changes. It's like, are they changing for the better or are they changing for the worse? And in keeping them a part of the conversation helps us understand how things are evolving. And it also brings them to show them that they're not alone. It's like some of the issues might still be similar, and so they're not alone in that, and they can find wisdom in our experiences and how we overcome things. And so that's the importance of including youth voice.
Mm. You know, I really agree with you when it comes to including our youth. Because I feel like even because I help run the young men's group at Foothill High School now with Ariel and our other fellow Christian. And a group from a year ago is different from even how our group was this last semester. And hearing our youth voices and really just listening to them, letting them impact even some of the way we run things now. Like in our graduation, we started making the commitment to give our boys flowers because one of our young men said during last summer was that he thought the only time men got flowers was at their funeral. And so his words are impacting us and we're letting him know like he's being seen. And for us, it's rewarding to see them become more vulnerable throughout the year, really talking to us and letting us know like what they need and how we could help them was one of the biggest rewards for me. So I want to ask you in your line of work, because you're working with all sorts of youth, especially in the community, what has been the most rewarding experience or experience that you really just carry in your heart that reminds you to keep doing the work you do?
I think the most rewarding experience is just bringing people together, and you celebrate occasions as they come. And so, yes, we're focused around a lot of the work that we do, and then it can be sometimes overwhelming around all these different policies that are changing, all these different meetings to attend, and all these different things to prepare for. But then there's the times, the holidays come around, and the things that I really enjoy is like setting up the space for just being able to sit in community and celebrate that, we made it to this time, to Christmas. We made it
Mm-hmm.
through New Year's. Uh, we made it to Easter. It's like we made it for all these different types of things and celebrating those times, just being in space together. So I think those are the most rewarding, as well as the graduations. Having one of my youth graduate from Evergreen Valley College, so congratulations to her, Stephanie. And so those are the things that are accomplishments, or the things that you value the most in this work. Seeing the youth make it to graduation.
Yeah, I know we got the opportunity to celebrate some of our young men and young women, right, that graduated both from the program and also from high school. And seeing them even be asked to give a speech, right, to talk about their journey, what has helped them get to that milestone, but also what were the struggles, right? Because I think sometimes we need to acknowledge both parts. But definitely, I think the celebrations are always beautiful to say, hey, you made it, and how can we lift you up for all the hard work? Because sometimes we don't get those acknowledgement. People don't know how much sleep we lost, how much energy it took, not only to accomplish things, but sometimes just the energy just to get up. That alone is hard, right? But thinking about, you just went through a Hope Noble training not so long ago. I know you were in a training with Mario Suna and Yesenia, some of those folks. I want to ask you, how was that experience? Because you participated as a youth in Hope Noble and then also did a fellowship over the summer, but now transitioning to being a circle keeper. How was that training?
The circle keeper training was, it brought to my attention a lot of what it takes to be able to hold space and to hold these talking circles. And at the end of it, it was very overwhelming. And to be completely honest, I didn't feel prepared to be able to hold spaces like that after doing the training. And it's not the part of the training, it's the part of my own life. And coming straight out of the pandemic and all the different types of things that were just happening in life, it's like I didn't feel prepared to be able to hold spaces like that. And then trying to do so with all that just being on the back of my mind would have just, I don't know, I felt like it wouldn't have honored the people who come together, or it wouldn't have honored the space itself. So that had been my experience. But the teaching is something that I do want to continue to study, and that, I still have the little book, so I just gotta crack that open and then, read that a little bit. And so that's gonna be an experience, because I do hope to one day be able to hold a space like that. And the people that training brought together, a lot of those people I still work with, and so it's an honor to work with them and to be able to have that space of vulnerability, and to be able to share their lived experience, and to be able to share the things that weigh on their shoulders, and to recognize them for who they are. So I really enjoyed that.
Thank you for being honest, because I will tell you that when I went to the Hope Noble training, that was my reflection too. I felt like it was so out of reach. I felt like this is cool. I love it. As a participant, I'm not ready to hold space yet. And it took me years to feel comfortable to really say, okay, I'm going to own it. I'm going to bring my experiences into this, and I'm going to make this space mine. But I had to keep reflecting back to that training, because I got trained in maybe 2011, 2012, and it was in Salinas. And the people that were in that room were just powerful, and they just seemed like they were experienced from the get-go. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not there yet. But I loved the training. There was components of the training that reminded me of my grandma. There was components of the training that reminded me of my relationship with my dad, which was struggling. And even components of the training that reminded me of my partner at that time. So there was different components, right? So if you think back to the training, is there any part that really called to you, that like pulled at you, that connected with you, that you want to lift up?
I think the thing that really pulled at me, and then I've come to really depend on, or like really value, is the moment where, you look at your relationships, and kind of the one thing that came out of it is that I had a lot of resentment from my brother. And then trying to better that relationship over the years, I come to understand my brother and the things that he's done, and he's always done things to better himself and to better his family, and that includes me. So, and then trying to understand him more, and him understanding me by just being there for each other, is one of the things that I would uplift from that. So it just brought to my attention that relationship, and that's something that I wanted to fix, and I think I'm on the right path to fixing that.
What you just said was I mean, in a way, you holding circle with your own brother, which is something that I think is important to highlight because running circle doesn't have to be in a big old group where you're changing millions of lives. Like even doing that self-care type of círculo where it's just you and the family and you really just listen to each other and uplift each other and work through the baggages and gifts. I think that's really important. And I just want to highlight that. But I mean, I definitely agree with you because we got trained last year. And then homie Ariel was like, all right, next week we're running group at Foothill. And we're like, okay, I guess we're doing it. So it was very overwhelming. And I didn't feel like I was prepared at all. Because, I mean, I went from sitting in group like for years to being thrown into the position of leading it. And I was like, no, thank you. Like, I don't want to mess up. And I realized you can't, like you're going to learn no matter what. And they're going to learn no matter what. So there's no real mess ups. It's just, what can I do better next time? So I definitely relate to you there. You were mentioning the relationships that you were able to help heal and really go through thanks to the Circle Keeper training. And I think relationships are very important in life. And I know for me, I probably wouldn't be where I am without the relationships I have, like with Ariel, with my brother, with my dad. And those are just people I always love to uplift for helping me be who I am as a man. So I was wondering if there is anyone in your life, in your healing journey, that you'd like to uplift.
I would always uplift my moms. Angela Yadira Chavez. She's strong-minded, consistently always worked her entire life to provide for a family of 5 children and then keeping us all together. And all of us are still here. And my other siblings, they're all creating their own little families. My older sister, Rosie, she has, I don't even know how many nieces I got. Like 4 nieces and 1 nephew from her. And then from my second oldest sister, Marissa, I have a niece and a nephew. And then from my oldest brother, I have a niece and a nephew. And then I have my youngest brother. And he doesn't have kids yet because I think he's 14.
Yeah, he can wait a little bit.
Yeah. And so that woman, she just really was there for her family and constantly working, constantly just giving her everything to us, and then us just flourishing in our own way.
Mm.
That made me think of my mom and made me think of even, one of our mentors, Mario, always says he never knows when his mom slept. Because when he woke up, she was already there, up and moving. And by the time he got home, got ready to bed, she was still waiting there for him. So sometimes our moms, man, they're the heart of the family. Do you mind sharing your mom's name with us?
Angela Yadira Chavez.
Thank you. The only reason I say that, because whenever we speak highly of somebody, we've always been taught that when you say their name, you send them good energy. So a lot of the times, if you're feeling in a funk and you don't know what's going on and all of a sudden you just feel good, like my partner likes to say, I had a skinny day. I woke up, I felt good, I look good, I'm ready for the day. It's because somebody was talking good about you. Someone said your name, someone sent you good energy. So for us, that's always important. But thinking about that good energy, right? Thinking about healing, because a lot of the times when we're working with youth, whether we know it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not, we're providing an opportunity for them to heal, whether it's talking about their past experiences, whether it's transforming the systems that's impacting them, whether it's just gathering in community. A lot of that is opportunities for us to heal. But when you think of healing, what comes to mind? How would you define healing? How do you see healing happening, whether it's personally, whether it's in your life or in the work that you do?
Personally, I see it as just satisfying some of the basic needs, because of that work ethic. It's like you can really fall short on eating sometimes, or just getting enough rest, and even just taking a breath sometimes. I think for me personally, it's just taking the time to be able to satisfy those basic needs. Just even this past weekend, got together with my brother and some of my cousins, and just we hit like 3 different restaurants and just went all out on food. And we were still talking about it, and about it's like never felt so full and just enjoying all that good food, and then taking the time to breathe, coming out of like one of the Youth Advisory Council expos, is like trying to organize that event and just being stressed out around if the youth are prepared enough, if the event is set up properly, and do I still have the venue? Is the space still available? And then once it's over, it's just being able to take that breath and just calm down for a bit, not have all that anxiety or stress. And then for sleep is still a difficult thing. I had mentioned before, I live like on the east side on Alum Rock. For those of you who are from the east side, it's like, this is a busy street. You always get people blasting in their loud music. You hear the sirens. It's like at least twice a day go off, and that's even at night. And so I have to sleep with my window open because summer's coming. And so not being able to get enough sleep and then trying to, it's like being able to rest from a long day. Those are the things that I see are healing. And then once all that just comes together after a while, it's like you're able to think properly, be able to give genuine wisdom, genuine advice, rather than something that's just quick, filled with anxiety or frustration or anger sometimes. Being able to be there to support people in a genuine way.
While you were talking, I was thinking about kind of how I grew up. Like, I never had a room to myself. I was always sleeping in the living room. The sirens, the chaos, right? And it's like the first time that I was in a space when it was complete silence, I felt so uncomfortable. I felt like the silence was just so loud, right? And it's a little ironic because even in college, I wasn't able to go to the quiet floor. I would just get distracted. I'll get anxiety. So I had to go down to the, for my folks at San Jose State that would know, I would go to the fourth floor that was open to the public, that a lot of the unhoused folks would be at. They would try to use the computers, and it was just loud. And that's where my most comfort was, right? So when you're talking about healing and trying to find that comfort, that's where my mind went. I can't, even to this day, I just can't be in silence. I don't like silent treatments. It just doesn't work for me. Right. But I think it took a while for me to define what healing meant to me. So when you were talking about food, when you're talking about being with people, when you're talking about taking a deep breath, like all of that is healing. And I think sometimes people think of healing and they think that it's something that has to be big. And no, healing could be every step you take. Healing can be every breath you take. All of that is healing. So thank you for simplifying that for us. The other question that sometimes feels like it's out of reach is when someone asks you, when did you realize you were sacred? Or do you know you're sacred? So if somebody would have asked you that question, do you know that you're sacred? Or when did you realize you were sacred? How would you answer that?
I realized I was sacred when I was in the Joven Nobles circle and talking about it, realizing that I came from my mom, I came from my father, and where they came from. My father's father is a farmer, Michoacán, Apatzingán. And so the one thing that I always say to humble me sometimes is like, I'm the grandson of a farmer. And it's like, I have everything I'll ever need. Always. Like, even if I had nothing, even if I didn't have a roof over my head or anything like that, I would still have everything I'll ever need, because at the end of the day, it's like, that's what I am. I'm a farmer. And so anything else is just a blessing, and everything else is just something to work towards. One of the things that I've come to acknowledge is that I do have that green thumb. So we talked about it during the men's talking circle about gardening, and so I've planted a couple lilies, about 3 sunflowers, and some other plants that I don't know the name of, but I should. But my lilies, they're about to bloom in like about a month. And then my sunflowers, they need a few more months, but they'll be in bloom hopefully in August. And that's what I think it means for me to be sacred, is to just live on the lessons and the teachings that were there from like the beginning. So being a farmer, it's like going back to the basics. And it teaches you a lot about not only how to tend to a garden, but also to tend to people around you. A lot of the times it's just simple little things that you need to do to make people feel like they can grow. And so one of the things is just giving people attention, being kind, and just always being a support. And then people just thrive.
Thank you. When you bring up the garden, my immediate thought always is to go to my grandma, because she's not a touchy-feely person. She won't like hug you unless like she feels like she has to. And she doesn't do emotions. But I've never seen her feel more in her element or more sacred than when she was at her gardens. I mean, Ariel knows. He's seen my little 4'11" grandma like smacking people to do what she needs them to do in her garden. And it's because that was her baby. That was her growth. And I could always see the happiness on her face when another strawberry turned out good, or another cantaloupe, or another sunflower. Those were one of her favorites. So thank you for sharing that. We're going to be moving into one of my favorite questions, and I ask it every single podcast. And we literally like now do it in a way to make sure I get this question all the time. And you've been dropping a lot of wisdom and a lot of amazing teachings throughout this podcast. So I'm very excited to hear what your response is going to be. But the question is, if you had a microphone and everyone in the world could hear what you're going to say from this microphone, what is one issue that you would like to uplift?
That's a difficult question to answer.
No pressure. I'm just playing.
All the pressure. Yeah, like I said, this is a hard question because I'm just gonna start off why it's a hard question to answer. The youth that I work with, they not only focus on like improving the juvenile justice system, they work on improving the foster care system. They work on improving like housing for young folk, as well as just housing in general. And so they also focus on providing a lot of resources for youth who are experiencing homelessness and all that type of stuff, as well as providing resources for young moms and being able to support individuals who feel like, well, young folk who feel like they don't have power, trying to bring people together and all that type of stuff. They tackle a lot of different types of issues. So I don't know how to answer this question. I feel like I'm being selfish by trying to uplift the issue that I feel like needs the most attention.
And I think that's valid, right? I think a lot of the times when we're given that platform, we want to lift up what impacts us the most. And I wouldn't say that's selfish. I would say you're advocating for people who are exactly in your shoes, but who might not have the words or the confidence to lift up those issues. And I say that because right now I just got off social media, and there's a new law that passed that state entities can now hire people who are undocumented, like the universities. I went through college being undocumented. I graduated with my degree and couldn't get a job because I didn't have a piece of paper to validate me as a human being. Right? So if I get the mic and the stage, I'm going to talk about those issues because there's still a lot of people within the shadows that can't come out and say, this is what I'm struggling with and I need someone to advocate for me. Right? So sometimes we might think it's selfish, but really what we're doing is we're speaking up for those people who are in our shoes, but maybe don't have the words to explain, maybe might not have the platform to advocate, or maybe might not even have the infrastructure or the support system to feel supported enough to tackle that issue, right? Because a lot of the times we get re-traumatized by the same issue that traumatized us the first time, right? So I would say it's not selfish. I would say it's okay for you to speak on issues that impact you, that might also impact other people that are next to you, that you might not even know that's how they identify. But no pressure in the sense of you got one issue, you got one mic, you got one stage. But no, I'll say feel free. You know, what would you want to lift up?
On that point, the thing I would want to lift up is the incarceration of young people. I don't believe that any person under the age of 18 should be incarcerated. And there should be a different type of justice system implemented to be able to support the young person and whatever they're going through, that whatever that led up to their crimes. Just an alternative to being incarcerated in a cell and losing their childhood. I think that's the worst punishment. Well, I don't think it's the worst punishment. I think it's one of many of like those very atrocious acts of humans. That's like the treatment of children in that way. And there are many examples throughout history of things like that. And that's the one thing that I would talk about. And how we shouldn't incarcerate young folk. There's better ways towards justice.
I couldn't have said it better myself. You know, there was one of the first times that I heard Maestro Jerry talk. He mentioned that there's no justification to throwing people away. That every single person who's in there is connected and is valued by somebody, and they're sacred just the way they are. They might need a little bit more support. They might need a little bit more resources, but he can never justify throwing anybody away. And I think when he said that was the first time that I was able to see what does that look like. Can we sit in circles to break cycles? So for me, that's what really got me reconnected and said, okay, this is where I need to be. But thinking about that, right, because we're getting close to the end right now, and I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to close up in a good way. I want to give you an opportunity, Angel, to say any closing remarks. Is there anything that you want to mention that we haven't had a chance to talk about? Maybe a question that we haven't been able to ask. Is there anything that you want to close us up out this conversation and also for our listeners?
Yeah, I guess I'll ask a question to y'all. It's like on your personal journeys, it's like, what's the goal? What's the goal? And I'll start off by answering it for myself. I think one of the things that I always constantly in spaces of talking circles is giving back to my mom and like trying to establish ourselves in San Jose so we can finally call it home. Well, we always call it home. Well, I call it home. And not being able to fully mean that because, how can you call the place home when you don't own a home here and all that type of stuff, And so that's what I'm working towards. I just really wanted to mention it's like I'm finally going to be able to have a place to be able to say that I own and this is home. So I'm achieving that goal and it's just sustaining that and then being able to build off that so the next generation can still have a place that they call home. Hopefully. The way that the government works throughout history is just atrocious and that it takes the homes away from the people just to build new things. But that's a whole different issue for a whole different time. But yeah, I would want to know what y'all's goal.
So I am going to be honest and say this is the first time in a podcast that the roles were switched. That we got asked a question. So Alejandro, you want to go first or you want me to go first?
Yeah, I could go first and then include my closing remarks into my answer. I literally texted Ariel what's happening right now when you asked that because I was like, oh, okay, I wasn't ready for that. But no, I mean, in doing this work, I feel like for me, my goal growing up even has always been giving the unheard a platform to talk and share their story. Whether it's doing Círculo or going the long-term process where I spend a lot of money on a law degree and helping out people that way, I'm still unsure. I'm 18, so I still have time to decide all that. But at the end of the day, my goal for me is to always have other people see how beautiful San Jose is in my life, in my eyes, have people see the beautiful young men who just need a little extra support and who just need a little extra love. I also texted Ariel as you were talking that underneath my Palabra sweater right now, I'm literally wearing a shirt that says close youth prisons, build youth leaders. So I really connected to what you were talking about when it comes to incarceration with youth. As for my closing remarks, I want to give you a big thank you for coming on our podcast. I know it's a little last minute. We kind of just threw the invite out there and you were ready for it. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for being vulnerable, sharing your story, feeling comfortable to open up with us. It's always a blessing to get to hear someone's healing journey and the work that they do. So thank you for that. Thank you to Ariel, as always, for being my co-host and doing this with me. And a big ol' thank you to our listeners.
Now back to me. All right.
No pressure.
I do appreciate you asking that question because I don't think we were ready for it. And I think that's when the most beautiful and authentic answers come out. You don't have a script. And I would say my end game for me is that everybody that I interact with, that I could add to their sacredness. And that for myself, that I come to a point where I feel 100% sacred. Because, I've heard people say you're sacred just the way you are. And I believe it, but I don't think I'm connected to it 100%. And I want to feel sacred where I don't feel like I'm an imposter at a university while I'm taking a class. Where I don't go back to my old high school, that it's a private institution, and people will say, oh, you graduated from here? And that take a little bit of my pride away. Feeling sacred where even the things that I wish were different about me, that I could still love. Right? I have a partner right now that says, you have a beautiful smile. And I always say, well, you're just saying that because you love me. Because, sharing a little bit, I had a drug addiction that led to a stroke that impacted half of my face. So I wasn't able to smile for over a year. So I wish I could go back to my smile before then, but I could still love my new smile. So if I were to say, what's my end game? I would say I want to love 100% of me, including the things I wish were different. And I want to make sure that anybody that I'm connected with, whether it's a partner, whether it's a friend, whether it's a relative, whether it's a youth in a circle, whoever I'm connected with, that I could hopefully acknowledge their sacredness so that they could see their sacredness 100% too, whether it's at that moment or in the future. So I know that was probably a little bit longer answer than anticipated, but I will say that's my end game. I know I am sacred, but I want to feel it 100%. So that's where I'm at. And anything else? Any other questions, Angel, before we finish up?
No. I just want to say one thing in honor of one of my youth who passed away, and dedicating this space and this conversation to him. His name is Ulises Jr. Jimenez. And as you were speaking about that sacredness and the people that we impact and how they make us feel sacred and how we want to make them feel sacred, he definitely made me feel sacred. And I know I impacted his life for the time that he was with us. So just honoring his memory,
Thank you for bringing him into the space. And I know you personally, man. So I know the relationship that you had with him was impactful for him. So thank you for that. And thank you for being vulnerable too, for being real. Because everything you shared is 100%. I'm taking that home with me. And I'm carrying that into all the spaces. And I hope our listeners did too. So, for anybody that might be listening, get connected to spaces that make you feel sacred. Get connected to people like Angel, like Alejandro, and all the people that we have on here that, hopefully are living the values that we were taught. Not necessarily in Circle, because I think in Circle we were just reminded of those values. But the values that we were taught from our grandparents that might have been farmers, from our moms that might have held the family together, from our brothers that teach us how and what it means to prioritize, right? So I just want to thank you, Angel, for all the stories that you shared with us today, for reminding us that we got to tend to our relationships and our gardens, and for all of the other valuable things that you shared throughout your story. And I want to thank all our listeners for tuning in as well. We hope that something that one of us shared today connected with you. And we hope that you continue to listen to the Healing Generation podcast. So until the next episode, all my relations. Hope everybody has a good one.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.